Today, I'm going to share with you why perfectionism is guaranteed to make you fail and what I've learned we can do to overcome it in 3 easy steps. Welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Riley, and today I'm excited to jump into how we can kick perfectionism's ass so it stops kicking ours. With that being said, I've heard a powerful quote in my own journey with dealing with perfectionism that really woke me up to how bad of a habit or tendency it was for me. And that quote was, "Perfectionism is the highest form of self-abuse." When we perfectionists act like perfectionists, we basically put ourselves in this constant negative loop and spiral that makes it so hard to break out of and leads to all sorts of negative things like I'll talk about here in a second, such as perfectionism, lack of self-esteem, imposter syndrome. I mean, the list goes on, and it can really stop us from progressing towards the things that we want to in our life, whether it's our goals or even something as simple as just taking action on something meaningful for us. So with that being said, guys, I want to talk about the cycle of perfectionism. So I learned this, that when we as perfectionists set these high standards for ourselves, we basically set ourselves up for failure, but we don't realize it. And so what happens is we have these super high expectations. We end up not meeting those expectations because, again, they're impossible. Perfectionism, as I've heard, is not a standard. It's an obstacle. So when we set those high standards for ourselves, we fail, which leads us to feeling like shit. We get ashamed, we feel guilty, we feel fearful or upset with ourselves. And next thing you know, that leads to us getting fired up again and going, oh, next time will be better. So we set higher expectations for ourselves the next time, which are harder to meet than the first ones were. That leads us back into that cycle of perfectionism where we end up not meeting those standards. Next thing you know, we're feeling like shit about ourselves, and we're back in the cycle. And what I've learned is that perfectionism actually stems from a feeling of like not enoughness. Like maybe you're not good enough, or I don't feel like I'm good enough sometimes, or we have this ideal life we want to create or ideal self that we want to become. And sometimes that creates a gap to where we're constantly comparing ourselves versus what we should do or who we should be versus reality. And reality is not perfect. It is a chaotic playground that is always going to bring its own mess of challenges, and we're not always going to be able to show up at our best. But even if we did, it wouldn't be good enough because we relate it to this perfect ideal of ourself or of a situation or of a standard we've set for ourselves rather than reality. And so, again, perfectionism stems from not enoughness, and it leads to that negative cycle, which a symptom of that in my own life, and maybe you've experienced this, has been procrastination. So perfectionism leads to procrastination, and procrastination is usually caused by not wanting to experience the negative feelings or potential outcomes associated with failure, with putting ourselves out there and doing something that could potentially lead to a quote unquote negative outcome or us not meeting our perfect ideal standard. So an example of that would be maybe we, procrastinate because we don't want to feel the feeling of rejection just in case something doesn't go right or someone else rejects us. Maybe they say something bad about what we created. Or maybe we procrastinate because we're afraid of feeling the feelings of sucking at something that we know we want to try and get better at, but we're struggling to take the action that we know we want to take. Or maybe we procrastinate because we're actually afraid of success and what would happen if we actually did the thing, and maybe it won't live up to our crazy high expectations or standards. So it's this whole crazy neurotic game, and it's been something that I've been able to overcome in recent years. But procrastination is ironic because it's guaranteeing us to fail from a lack of action, or we're going to for sure get mediocre results because we didn't take the actions that were necessary to get the result we even wanted in the first place, or even a reasonable one because our expectations and standards were so high that we trip ourselves up before we get started. So again, perfectionism is not a standard, I've heard. It's an obstacle to any level of progress that we want to make. Another thing that really slapped me in the face is I've heard this saying that the most selfish people hide behind perfectionism and insecurity. The reason why is because out of an attempt to stop rejection, feelings of failure, or just being uncomfortable in general, we end up robbing ourselves and everyone else of anything that we could create or do because we're afraid of not being perfect, which is the craziest thing. And so I want to tell you the 3 easy steps that we can take to beat perfectionism and what's worked in my life to handle it as it's come up in different times. Number 1, reframing failure really helped me, and I know it'll help you as well, each failure is not actually a failure. Really, you can't fail if you don't quit. So as long as you get back up on the pony each day or each time and you keep trying to make progress, you don't really ever fail. You only fail if you throw in the towel, which I know you're not going to do, my friend. And so you got to view each failure as a mini milestone on the path to success. It's like the rungs on a ladder. You don't get the next rung until you trip and fall and learn a lesson that allows you to pull yourself up to the next level. So failure is an essential part of success or making progress or winning in any capacity. You have to fail. You got to miss a few shots before you can make one, type of thing. So reframing failure. There's not really any such thing as failure. It's just learning and progressing. And so that leads me to my second step to overcome perfectionism, which is progress over perfection. I have to tell myself that as a little mantra all the time. I want to look for progress, no matter how small it is, and then grade myself based on that. Did I try? Did I show up? Did I at least move the needle forward a little bit? Awesome. That's good enough. There's another saying that done is better than perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, so progress is also better than perfect. Just making some step in the right direction is more important than trying to meet some crazy ass standard that we set for ourselves. So did you make any level of progress? Good enough. The third thing that's helped me to overcome perfectionism, and I know it'll help you as well, is to celebrate your wins. So we get to reprogram ourselves and take every opportunity we possibly can to pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, I see you, to ourselves. Because I think for us, we have this maybe lack mentality of like, oh, we're not good enough or we're not going to be good enough no matter what we do, because we base our worth in the things we do, which is crazy. It's not always so bad, but just being real with you guys today, being vulnerable. Like, I definitely struggle from perfectionism. And when I take time to celebrate my wins and say, hey, you know what? Today I showed up. Today I got my habits done. Today I did something that was good for me or good towards something I'm working towards. Taking time to celebrate that gives me that positive feeling, and also is like supportive. Rather than beating myself up and beating myself down, I lift myself up and I make it worth it. I give myself the positive reinforcement that's needed, because ultimately we can only give ourselves what it is we want from other people. If you want someone else to say you're the shit, tell yourself you're the shit. You don't need anybody else to give you permission to be that. And honestly, we got to be our own hype men and women at the end of the day. My call to action for you guys today is have the courage to be imperfect and get super excited, because the sooner that we all start at something and the sooner you start at something, the better you're going to get, and the more evidence you're going to have with each right step in the right direction. That will be cause for a mini celebration, so we can pat ourselves on the back and continue to make progress towards beating procrastination and perfectionism. So I hope today's video helped, guys. Don't get caught up in your head. If you're feeling like a perfectionist right now, I want to give you permission to go suck at something and be excited about the process, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow, that's what we're here to do. So until next time, guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.